Back to the Denver Radio Real Estate Show. I'm Cheryl Garlock with Colorado Front Range Properties. Hey, you guys know we were just talking a minute ago here before the break here about interest rates and what Freddie Mac was thinking about. Now, Freddie Mac, of course, is just like Fannie Mae. They're some of the largest single family, or not actually, lenders for residential real estate. And everything is kind of dictated by a little bit about what they say. Now, Freddie Mac had made a mention here about the interest rates going up to ultimately 6%. It won't take real long to get there, but they put a chart together here, which is kind of interesting here, and on a decade approach. So in the 1970s, the average rate in the 1970s was 8.86%. And in the 1980s, it was 12.7%. Now, some of us remember some of the 80s even being a lot higher than that. And in the 1990s, it averaged about 8.12%, and in the 2000s, about 6.29%. And year to date, in 2014, it's averaging, over the last 4 years, 4.36% here. So the truth is, they really do expect the interest rates to get over 6% and to stabilize there. And in having done this now for 34 years, I will tell you that it's not unlikely for us to see 6, 7, 8% as a normal rate. And it won't happen tomorrow, but it will probably happen in the next 2-3 years, so at least 6% anyway. So it's a great time to be the buyer, take advantage of those interest rates while they're lower, because it's not the purchase price of the home that really gets you. It's the interest rate that really affects what your monthly mortgage payment is going to be. Now, I also had an interesting run-in with another person here earlier this past week about having bought a brand new home. I need to ask you guys, do you think buying a brand new home is smarter than buying a resale home? Joe, you got any ideas on that? Do you think that buying a brand new home is smarter than buying a resale home? I think. Yeah, that's true. And that's a good analogy there to look at it there from that aspect there. But there are in real estate, there are a lot of other things to think about. The chief reason about looking at buying a brand new home versus a resale home, and there are pros and cons both sides of the coin, don't get me mistaken here on that at all, but when you buy a brand new home, sometimes it has not been what engineers like to call time tested. So the biggest deal here is about the soils. It's about the soils settling. So if you have ever made a homemade cake from scratch, and you mix up the flour and you sift that flour, and if you've ever done that, you've seen that it's a bunch of dust in the air, and it seems like it takes it a while for that flour to somewhat settle. Well, that's what happens with soil in a sense here. It takes a while when the developers go in and develop the land. They smooth it out. They run all this equipment, earth moving equipment over there to smooth it out, that sort of thing. Well, it was already packed before, and now they've made it so that you can build homes on it, but the truth is the soil has not completely packed. So that's why a lot of times engineers will say the test of time on a property. So the true test of the time of the structural integrity of property might actually be 3 to 5 years to see whether that soil is actually stable enough or it's not going to move. And of course, then there are some properties that have this little thing that we call bentonite in the soil. Bentonite is an expanding clay in the soil, and that's where you go into a house and sometimes you see all the doors that want to close on themselves. Have you ever seen a house where all the doors just seem to, they don't want to stay open? When you open them, they want to close. Have you ever seen that, Joe? Yeah. Oh, exactly. And so that's really what can happen here, and that's what bentonite happens or causes, you might say. And so it can cause a lot of structural damage. By the way, in case you didn't know it, this kind of damage is not covered under under your homeowner's policy. It does not cover that kind of thing at all. So, in fact, let me just read to you something out of a book, and if you guys are interested, let me tell you the name of this book. It's called Foundation Repair Science, and it's by David Thrasher, Amanda Harrington, and Larry Janeski. An engineer had given me this book here, and this person I was speaking with the other day was talking about how they bought a new home Well, now this was several years ago, but they're still having problems with this new home in that, all these structural problems happened some time ago. And it said that during, construction, of a new home, layers of soil are commonly moved around or spread out to get the desired grade level, like I was talking about with the flour and making a cake. But when the home is built, footings may be deepened to extend below weak fill soils. But the slab, however, remains in the fill soils. If the fill was poorly compacted, the fill soil compresses and settles, and a void is created under the slab. That void, okay, so that means it's kind of like a sinkhole in a way. It can happen like that. So then the slab cracks, breaks, and settles into the void. And that can make things, you might say, out of kilter there. So, you want to be thinking about that when you're thinking about buying a brand new home. As far as that's concerned. And a lot of times builders will offer you soils test results, and you want to find out if they've done a complete soils test on that particular lot. That's really, really important there. And I don't mean a little 6-inch soils test. I mean a really nice deep soils test. Why is that important? It's so that when they're building the property there, they know what the elements are of the soil, and they can build that accordingly so that the structure of the house is nice and strong and stable. Now I have another question for you about buying a new home. Does it cost more to buy a new home? Joe, you were mentioning that a little bit there. It would be, and it's really, the simple reason is it's the cost of labor and materials, wood in particular. And when's the last time you've seen builders use a ton of brick? What they do use is face brick, and it's because these materials cost so much, and of course labor goes up. So building a new home can be a bit more expensive than buying a resale, but you get some really great features in a brand new home, when you're looking at that. Now then, the other thing I want you to just remember is what's the return on value on the new home versus a resale. Again, now this is going to be highly dependent on location and what a community has to offer. So you want to go ahead and make sure that you're looking at the elements that affect new construction and a new home build when you're actually thinking about making an investment into that. Like how many other homes are still left to be built in that subdivision? What's the resale factor? I could go on and on and on about this, but I think I better go ahead and let you just call me to ask me questions about whether you should buy a new home or buy a resale. What's that number? 720-373-0654. 720-373-0654. Hey, stay tuned. We've got some great properties to share with you on the Denver Radio Real Estate Show. We'll be right back.